In this tutorial, we're going to look at the Notations tab, including clef, key signature, time signature and bar line sections, the lines menu, the symbols menu, note heads and note head names, beaming options, how to import graphics, and the bracket and brace options. So let's first have a look at the common area of the Notations tab. First, we have key signature. Now the shortcut Q still works from previous versions. So if I want to, I can add any of the below key signatures. For example, I can add mezzo soprano to this violin part if I want to. Not exactly fitting, but you will see that it instantly changed the notation that follows the clef change. So let's delete it, and it changes it back. If I just hit Q, the shortcut, I get to the same menu. And you can see that all the notation following the clef change has changed its range for me automatically. Get rid of that, and it changes back. Exactly the same is true on the key signature section of the common area. Hit the keyboard shortcut K, that will open that menu for me. And I can add pretty much anything I want to, automatically changing all the notation that follows. Time signature, or the shortcut T, will allow me to add the time signature of my choice in the numerator and denominator fields up to 126/64, or I can choose from one of the more common ones. Now you'll see that even with a ridiculous time signature like 5/4 for this particular piece, you'll see that Sibelius will do its very best to make all the notation work, but you also see that I get an error warning me about triplet groupings. Let's undo that. Let's pick something a little bit more appropriate. So we're in 9/8, let's try 12/8. It's going to change it and do a reasonable job. And let's change it back. Next we have the bar lines section. Now you'll have noticed so far that bar lines are added automatically as I create more and more bars or more notation. However, there are times when we want to add specific bar lines like repeats. So I can add a repeat mark there, add one there as well. It's worth noting that repeats play back. Now in standardized Western notation, repeats generally will just work round once unless marked. Now you can add in a marking in just normal text if you want to, and make the repeat pass more times by using this play on pass function in the inspector. All I have to do is click on the bar line, and now it will play around twice. You can see that the first repeat mark is set to play on every single pass, and now the second one will play back twice. So now first repeat, second repeat, and then it goes on. So you can see it's very, very easy to change the way the repeat marks react. We also have different types of bar lines, dashed. Final bar lines are added automatically, although you can create final bar lines in the middle of pieces if you want to. Short bar lines, ticks, bar lines between staves if you want to, doubles, all these can be added. Now in the lines menu, or L, we find a lot of useful stuff. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom so you can see there is a user definable area. And as I scroll back up, you can see various different lines for guitar arpeggios or arpeggios in general. Different types of lines and boxes, brackets, lines for particular types of guitar style and guitar playing, vibrato, pick scrape, touch harmonics, different hairpins, crescendos, decrescendos, many of which have shortcuts in their own right. But lines also include different repeat endings. And it's worth noting there is a difference between a second ending with an open bracket and a second ending with a closed bracket. If it's open, it means the piece will carry on. If it's closed, the piece will stop at this point. And that's really, really important. A lot of people make that mistake, and emails end up going to technical support with, my piece doesn't play any further than the second ending. It's because they've used a closed line or a closed bracket rather than an open one. Octave lines and pedal marks also come into this category. And again, it's worth noting that all these play back. So if you put an 8VA or an 8VB, these will play back. Trill lines also work. Glissandos, Ritz, Raus, Excels, all these do play back. However, the top four are by far the most common and the most used. Slur with the shortcut S, crescendo, H, diminuendo, shift H, and rit. So for example, let's add some slurs into our score quickly. Hit S, puts me a slur in. If I hit spacebar, it's going to jump to the next note. If I want to, I can have it jump all the way along. Of course I don't. In this case, there's fine. Let's have one there as well. S. And in Sibelius 7, they've spent an awful long time making sure that slur lines will always look nice and neat and will always pair up perfectly. Now, if I want to, I can change various aspects of this slur in the inspector. Change the way it looks. Let's just zoom right in for you for a moment. So I've really got an awful lot of control how my slurs look. As it turns out, they're pretty terrible now. So I just hit S, and there we go. But you can see if I want to change a particular aspect, I can do. Zoom back out. Now, these lines here look an awful lot like slurs. But you also can see down on my keypad that my tie line has lit up. Now this is a really, really important thing about Sibelius. Although ties and slurs look exactly the same, they behave in a very different way, and they massively affect the playback. So for example, if I delete this tie and replace it with a slur, it looks fine, but you will now hear the second note. If I solo that section, because it's unable to actually slur between the same note, because obviously it shouldn't be a slur, it should be a tie. If I delete it and replace it with a tie, now when we play back, it sounds as it should. So the general rule is if the note changes, it should be a slur. If it's the same note, it should be a tie. Obviously, unless you want the rhythm dictated that way.